What a day to be alive. Welcome to Rise Up with Rick. We are passionate about helping you extract the most out of every day and exploring and enhancing all things physical, mental and emotional well-being and performance. We are brought to you by runners.com. That's runnez.com, as well as rickmirabella.com. Radio, let's launch now.
G'day and welcome to Rise Up with Rick. Now with me today, one of the Victoria's and Peninsula's and Australia's great football stories, one of the great men of AFL football, 4 VFL B&Fs, yep, say that again, 4, and all before a very young age, if you don't mind. He's gone on to carve out one of the great careers in football, one of the media and just general life's great men, and he is now operations manager. I'll let him talk about that in the civil world over in WA, but his story goes far deeper than that. He's one of the great articulators as well, and he's just a very authentic and genuine person who helps a lot of people. I welcome Micky Ablett.
Good to see you.
Lovely to have you. He's from WA, he lives over there now. We'll get talking about what you're doing now. He just picked us up a coffee on the way through. Thanks, Micky. You're a star. And he's just popped in, which I really appreciate. I said, well, it'd be good to do it in person. Micky and me are from the same region of the peninsula down here in Victoria, the Mornington Peninsula, where he was an absolute megastar footballer, and I want to go back through that. But tell us, what are you doing now, brother? We see you on TV and the radio a lot. How's life in WA, family life, work, footy, and we'll take you back a bit.
Yeah, geez, it's good to come here and get a pump up, mate. Might pop in a bit more often.
Awesome. I'll do it anytime, brother.
But, things are good. Couple of girls. My oldest is 16, Taylor. She's right into her dancing. Mackenzie's almost 14. She's actually playing football, mate. I never thought I'd have one of the girls playing football, but she absolutely loves it. So they're going really well. I did tell them if they were no good at it, mate, we'd have to change their last name because can't be Ablett, not get a kick.
It's a pretty good name. Very famous family.
No, going well. And doing a little bit of work at Subi Footy Club, which is great. Just keeping a toe in the water. Love working with young people. A fantastic group there. And working at Melcor Construction, big civil construction company in WA, and working with another Peninsula great, Dylan Ogilvy's the general manager there. So ex-Sereno boy. So it's life's pretty good, mate.
It's funny how football, they'll get you those circles that you've been involved pretty much the whole time, but we'll talk about that later. But like Dill was on the list at VFL club Frankston Dolphins, which is a very famous club in Victoria if you're over Australia. And the VFL, for those that aren't footy inclined, is the second best comp in the nation by a mile. It's the feeder, it's the reserves comp, whatever you want to call it. It is elite football. And I'm going to talk to Mick about that in a minute because it's really important stuff. But Dylan and Mick met just through football, and now he's obviously across the country. You are on the radio a lot. Now the media stuff's just a little add-on stuff, but it does keep you. You clearly, if people like SEN and these stations and Sport FM in WA and all this kind of stuff. Fox Footy around draft time, we'll talk about that later. You clearly are highly renowned, and your football now is second to none. So that's fantastic. The coaching stuff will now, the mentorship and the runner at Subi. We spoke off air about this space that provides you mentally to be able to coach the boys, help the boys, run on game day, but not be tied to anyone's spot, which is rare in football these days. You're able to come back for a Stingrays, a Dandenong Stingrays, Southern Stingrays reunion to Victoria. Look, all this stuff you can actually do and spend time with your beautiful girls and kids and on the weekends, which is great. But it's rare in football spaces. So at the moment you got the mix pretty right.
Yeah, I think so, mate. It was something, I guess, footy in my time when I was full time at the AFL took a lot of time away from my family, and you live and you learn a little bit, mate, and you look back on those things and probably could have done things a little bit better. And I guess as you get a bit older and hopefully a little bit wiser, I just realised, that time with my 2 girls is crucial and good for me. Not just good for them, good for me as well to be around them. So I go down training one night a week. I'm fortunate Bo Wardman and Christian Dicton at the footy club have been big supporters of mine and allowed me to get down to training one night a week and then run for the league team on game days. And it's really good for my mental health. I love my footy. I'm super passionate. I love helping young people. A couple of old boys, Italy Kitchen, who's someone very close to your heart and mine, an ex-Frankston boy. So, it's just to be able to get that release, mate, and get away. It's a a great environment to be in. Like you say though, without being a line coach or something that takes you away 3 nights a week and pretty much a whole day on a weekend, and then you're cutting vision and all that sort of stuff. So I chose, to take a little bit of a lesser role, and like I said, the guys at the club have been super supportive, but mentally it's probably one of the best things I've done.
I love that. And to find out at our age, to have that clarity is hopefully something that lots of people can do. But Mick's when we chat, you'll hear that he's got a lot of self-awareness, which doesn't come naturally to most of us. We've got to really keep working on it every day. But the fact he's doing what he's doing now in the construction world and this kind of stuff, and has a bit of a toe in football media and a little helping and developing young footballers, which is definitely a major one-wood of his, and also keeping his eye across the land for the next crop coming through, because that's part of your role as well. Lots of passions tied into one without being all-consuming.
Yeah, look, footy's always been my number one. I love it. I love working with young people. Have kept a toe in the water through some of the media stuff and doing the draft stuff, and not just from a WA perspective, but nationally. I'm fortunate to have built some pretty good relationships over time that I can lean on people and bounce things off them. Watch a lot of vision, mate. Takes up a lot of time, but it's just, that's always been my passion, and I'm very, very fortunate to have the job I do and be in civil construction, work with a great company, great people. But footy, I think, mate, will always be number one.
And the football attributes, the leadership that you've always had, we'll talk about that, and the ability to help build cultures and prosper all different personalities, it obviously helps you at work tenfold.
Absolutely. It's something, when I had a call from Dylan Ogilvie, and Dylan's a great friend of mine, and obviously, you're familiar with him too, and he sort of spoke about coming on board, and I had a couple of people at the start say, geez, he runs things a little bit differently, and I said, it's fine, I've got a feeling I know how he goes about things, and it actually went back to our days at Frankston under Brett Lovett, and that's exactly the way Dylan's running his business and works with his people. Is the same mentality and those same principles, those same morals, which he's built a very, very successful company over there in Perth, and made it pretty easy for me, mate.
Do you want to touch on some of those?
Yeah, look, it's just one of his big things is just treating people with care and respect, being super honest with your people as well, but he's very empathetic. We always knew where we stood with Brett, and I try not to get emotional, mate. I tend to get a bit when I talk about Lovey, but
you can get as emotional as you want.
Look, he had a huge impact on a number of people, not just on field but off field, and he built an environment where you knew where you stood, you knew what was expected. He made it very, very clear, and he didn't expect anyone to be perfect, but you did have to be accountable for your actions. It was about taking feedback on board and getting back to what Dylan was doing and how we work within our business. It's about the person first. And that's, I guess, when I talk about Brett, teaching people off field and improving you as a person, a lot of it's about that empathy and that care for the person, not just as a footballer or as a worker. So that's probably the most important thing I reckon, mate.
So Lovey, for those, again, outside of Australia, Melbourne Demons, 250 odd games or more, very quietly spoken in the AFL player sense, but quickly transitioned into coaching, coached these boys, which we'll talk about no doubt at Frankston Dolphins in the VFL for a long period of time, and some superstars there, again, was quietly spoken to from a media front, but a lot of my good friends and Mickey and all these crew were coached under him, and no one has ever said anything that isn't 10 out of 10 complimentary about Lovey. And the fact is, when you build an environment or foster a culture where people know you care, genuinely care,
absolutely,
not just faking caring like a lot of people in HR and things, genuine care, then you can give and distribute honest feedback.
Yeah.
And you can have some tough conversations.
Yeah, I had an old, when I worked in the glass industry a while ago, I had a mentor, one of the owners, 3 Italian brothers that ran the company, and I never forget, one of them said to me, Ricky said, don't ever mistake kindness for weakness. and that's stuck with me, and I think is very important because I think some people see kind people and caring people as being a bit, soft and that sort of thing. But certainly not the case, and it's something that I've taken a lot out of when it comes to mentoring people, when it comes to working alongside people. Is everybody wants to feel like somebody cares about them, and that's really important. So that care factor was big within football. It's big for me personally now, both within my work life and my personal life, and certainly something that we pride ourselves on within Melcor and the company I work for.
I love it, mate. It just gives us a good base then to launch from here, because we're getting an idea of where you're at now currently, and a bit about, I guess, your leadership styles, and what makes you tick. And obviously your beautiful family is number one, but footy is a huge passion of yours. Take us right back, and how did this football journey begin? Now, preface this by, people are going to read it now, the Ablett name is huge. It's obviously probably the most famous name, it definitely is the most famous name in Australian rules footy. So take us back to childhood type stuff, the name, and how closely you are related to Gary Senior and crew.
So I grew up, I started in Hillsville, believe it or not. I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Got some lovely runners members out in Hillsville.
Yeah, lovely part of the country. And then moved to Frankston and grew up there, played my junior footy at Frankston Rovers, had older brother, so I looked up to him. He's 7 years older than me, and I was very, very fortunate to have him there as a teacher and a mentor for me. And then got involved with the Dandenong Stingrays and started to move through that pathway. That was when we actually came across Faye Tuck, who made name, obviously, Faye Ablett, Gary Senior's sister. I don't get much better when you talk about genes and breeding when you've got Faye Ablett and Michael Tuck, who's one of the greats. So by coincidence, ended up playing some under 16 footy. I was in the Peninsula squad, and Shane Tuck and Ryan Ablett were in the Southeast squad. And Faye sort of approached me one night and said, how I introduced herself and said who she was, and had come to a bit of a standstill with the family tree she was working on at the time. So I said, look, I'm probably not going to be much help to you, but my dad loves that sort of stuff. So they linked up, and he provided some information, and which kick-started her research a bit further. She came back a little bit later and said, that the same grandfather was in the family, and there was a second cousin link there. So, it was nice, mate. It's a rare name. It's a big name in footy. I unfortunately don't have the same amount of zeros on my bank account as what a couple of the other boys do. But, so... There's
a fair family tree there. While we're here, we might as well say, off the top of my head, you'll be much better at this, but obviously Gary Senior, Kevin, his brothers Kevin and
Jeff.
Yep. Jeff was a very good sprinter, by the way.
Yes,
Wasn't he? Very
absolutely.
Nice. And then the cousins, so Gary Jr.
Yeah, the late Ryan. So Ryan unfortunately passed away. Shane's no longer with us as well. Nathan, played in the Premiership at Geelong as well. So Luke Ablett, that worked with at the AFL Premiership player, I believe, with the Swans. I think he was in their Premiership team, but again, an outstanding player. So, those boys have had outstanding careers and journeys, and pretty amazing. So, sort of went through the Dandenong Stingrays, was lucky. You touched on the reunion we had, which played in the 97 grand final team as a 16-year-old. So, Brendan Favola and
Super side this. So 97, Micky's only 16. You got obviously Trav's going number one that year.
Trent Crode, Stevie Milne, Adam Romanascus, Chris Massey,
Stacked.
Craig Jackatine, Andrew Williams that went over to West Coast, Emilio Merchant, Toby Garbers, some great players from our neck of the woods. Just unbelievable. It was Craig Black got drafted by Carlton, so. It was an incredible team, great experience. So had my 3 years there, and then played 5 games with Collingwood's reserves in my last years when they had the AFL reserves, coached by the late great Danny Frawley. So Spud was someone that I ended up getting pretty close to.
I was about to say that. Obviously, you later work in AFL, but you and him, you would have been pretty tight from the outset. I'd say you're very similar.
Yeah, he looked after me when I was a kid. I was only 18 years of age playing reserves and playing alongside the likes of Lee Walker, who's someone, and Damien Monkhurst played, Paul Lacuria.
You would have weighed about one of Monkey's thighs back then.
It's funny you say that. I was out at North Melbourne's training yesterday, caught up with Boomer Harvey, and Monkey was out there as a ruck coach for the Kangas, and I said to Boomer, he ain't getting any smaller. And my recollection, when I sat there one day and warmed up before a game, I sat next to him. We were doing a quad stretch. I'll never forget it, at Vic Park. And I looked across, and they were the biggest thighs I had ever seen in my life. I'd never seen a human with legs that big. So, frightening. But
it's an amazing area for Monkey. He was a champion, obviously, of the game. But whether he gets through in this day and age, who knows? I know there's a couple of big fellas right now. But Mickey was an 18-year-old kid. Year 12 still?
I was there. I finished year 12 as a 17-year-old.
So, you're a young year 12. But, this young 18-year-old kid, line up, supplementary list at Collingwood, like, amazing effort to be playing there as it was. Coached by this legend, Danny Frawley. Big Monkhurst is running around. He's a 10-year premiership player.
Yeah, and I remember Nathan Buckley came and sat down. We played a curtain raiser, and came and sat down next to me at half-time and just started having a chat and stuff, which blew me away. I was, like yourself, just
peak of his powers.
Huge football fan. But, so I did that. Got on a rookie list at the Kangaroos. Was there for 2000 and into a little bit of 2001. Got delisted and then made my way back to Frankston. And
do you remember that chat?
Yeah, it was interesting. I'd been told the day before the rookie draft that I was going to be relisted, which I was pretty happy about. And then come the morning of the rookie draft, one of the assistant coaches came up to me and said, things have changed a bit, and they're not sort of sure now. They might be going for some height and that sort of stuff. And as it turned out, that's the way they went. But that's life, mate. I was very fortunate. I made some great mates, and Boomer just organised a Kangas reunion at the recent game against West Coast, and caught up with 8 or 9 of the boys over there that some of them played through, that time I was there. Others were sort of before and after and the like, but I was very, very lucky. Very lucky.
And again, you make your own luck, but I reckon the relationships you've built, and you get an idea that he's only 19 at this stage, but you've picked up these relationships that you still catch up with, and whether you play 0, 1, 5 reserve games, 10 reserve games, 20 reserve games, whatever that year was, or you play 300 AFL games. It's not about that. Life's about the relationships you pick up along the way, and you were already busy accumulating these relationships at 19, which is pretty. I think it speaks to your character. Frankston Dolphins, the very next year. This is where I guess this some of the rarest footy I've ever seen. I played local footy, obviously, and I watched a fair bit of Mick in this era when we could, because we all loved the Dolphins, and obviously had a lot of mates playing. So Mick was one of the purest halfback flankers. Did you ever even bother going inside? I mean, I can't remember. You were just one of the You're one of the most purest footballers, and this is the last I'm going to pump him up, I promise, but one of the purest footballers and readers of the play and execution, ball in hand, you'll ever see. The quarterback, before it was kind of famous, really, halfback flanker, before it was commonly done, you just fell into it, and just from there, this was the special era we talk about from 01. Take us through your time. I think you've spoke about Lovey already. That time at Dolphins where everything was just, you were just seeing like bloody beach balls.
Yeah, look, when I first got there, Rob Mace was the coach, and obviously the godfather Brian, his dad was the general manager of the club, and they're two people that are still very close to my heart. It was challenging, mate. I got there, just come off an AFL list, and thought I was pretty happy with where I was at, and I'd walk into this team and found myself in the second team during the practice matches. And played the first game of the year in the reserves in 2001. And I catch up with Rob now, and we have a laugh and a joke about it. And he goes, geez, one of the biggest mistakes of my life was playing in the reserves in round 1. He goes, I think you come out and had 40 or something like that, and the rest is history. But again, it was a great lesson for me, because I see kids now that come through 18s that have been talented and that, and sort of expect to walk into senior football. And I think back on my own journey, and I had to earn the respect of my coaches. So It was lucky. My first year played alongside Luke Beveridge, Shane Bergman, Adrian Little, Chris Sullivan. These guys were greats of state league football. Some had played a bit of VFL/AFL football as well. Ash Roberts, who was one of my all-time great mates and someone I've got just a huge amount of respect for. So I was fortunate to come in at that time. We got halfway through 2002, and unfortunately, Rob, we weren't going that great, and Rob got the sack, and Phil Partington coached out the remainder of the year, and from 2003 onwards, Brett took over, and that was the start of that culture piece that we just touched on. And within the first probably month, I reckon Brett took over. He set a standard around expectations in terms of attending training and those sorts of things. And I think we might have lost. We lost our centre half back and maybe our full back. Couldn't commit to the training, and we're sitting back going, "What is this bloke doing? Like, these are champions. Where are we going to go? We just lost two of our best players." But like I said, Brett just set a standard there, and from there on out, in terms of my playing career, I was lucky. Brett played a similar sort of role when he was at Melbourne, and he's the trust and faith he showed in me, and his ability to teach, and what he taught, like, again, more so as a person, which translated on the field. A lot of people, I think, get this thing about sport translating to life. I see it quite differently. I think life can translate into sport and help you with your sporting career. So,
that's extremely true. That's fucking brilliant. Everyone listen to that again.
Yeah.
For young athletes, especially if you're a parent of young athletes, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and he just set a standard, mate. And we were never the most talented side going around. I think everybody admits that. But the success that we did have, and we played finals and the like, and he just got the most out of the group. Big Dickie Custerson, the late Dickie, he was an immense figure in that period.
I'll preface this, guys, if you're not, again, familiar, this is a Frankston Dolphins clean team. So in the VFL, for listeners out of Australia or Victoria, these guys are just obviously off AFL list, off Stingrays list, out of the local football competition. They're university students, a lot of tradies, especially in that era, a lot of tradies. So a lot of tradesmen playing against every single week professional footballers. So the reserves of a Collingwood or an Essendon or a Carlton football club. Huge. It's a huge, huge, huge achievement to be playing and competing and winning when you're working 40 hours a week. So that's where we're at here.
Yeah. You mentioned about the midfield stuff, mate. Every time we got an injury, I sort of come in off the back of the square and try to throw myself in the midfield to have a bit of a run there, and pretty quickly the runner would come out and say, "Mick, get back."
Well, you did. Look, I'm not going to embarrass you, but 4 best and first in a row with a side full of legit champions. I think you were pretty well placed. I think they had you in the right spot, mate.
Yeah.
Just quietly. Regardless of who was in there, you were playing off that quarterback role pretty well. What was your main? You were captain by how old? Because you were a very young captain.
Yeah, would have been 23. I was 23 years of age. I was made captain, and look, and that's where things probably took a little bit of a turn, mate. And you talk about life experiences and those sorts of things, the lessons you learn. So at the end of the 2004 season, after my third best and fairest, I'd met a girl overseas who turned out to be, went on to become my wife, and I left the footy club in February of 2005. Yeah, it certainly didn't do it the right way, which, unfortunately left the club in a bit of a precarious spot. And anyway, as it turned out, mate, I thought I could go over there and just live there and get on with life, which I couldn't. So 5 weeks later, had to come back and rang up Brett and said, "Look, I'm coming back. We're now sort of middle of March, getting ready to get into practice matches. Could I come back to the club?" He said, "Look, it's not my decision. It'll be a decision of the leadership group, and you'll have to sit in front of them." So went down to training and my tail between my legs and sat in front of the group and basically had to ask if I could return to the club. And a few of the boys were pretty easy going about it, a few not so much, which I wholeheartedly understand. And and respect them probably more so for being like that. They said they'll have a chat about it, and so I left training that day not knowing whether I was going to be going back there or not. Ended up back there and had to work my way back through the reserves, and a few of the boys thought it was pretty funny, mate. I was up at Ballarat playing reserves and out of bed at 6:30 in the morning and kicking the dew off, and which was rough.
Pretty humbling. Look, yeah, I think if it wasn't, you didn't have the character you got. A young bloke, you're still very, very young at this stage, by the way. You've come off the 3 years you've had, or 5 years you've had, really. 7 years of great success. It's a good lesson. It's a good character building lesson.
It is. When you look back, there's a lot of things we wish we could do differently. I look back on that moment in life, and I learned so much out of it. And having to actually earn people's trust and respect back, who you genuinely care about. I'm talking to some of the great people like Normie Clark and Ash Roberts, who I mentioned. John Hines was another guy who...
pretty big personalities, big leaders, and you either got their respect or you haven't.
Yeah, absolutely, and I lost that. Went from being captain of the club to probably down the bottom of the pecking order, which rightfully so I caused that myself, and the lessons I learned out of it and having to work my way back, and then we played finals that year and ended up getting knocked out in an elimination final down at Bellerive in Hobart. I can remember that day fondly. It was a funny sort of feeling going out knowing that was the last game that you were going to play, and I was again had a really good season and was able to finish on the highest possible note from an individual perspective in getting my fourth best and fairest. And I just look back on that time and you just value again the faith that Brett showed in me as a person and as a footballer, and you just they were dead set probably 5 of the best years of my life, hands down. And during that period I got to play for Victoria and represent the state, and we had a win over in WA. That's something probably the highest point, to be honest, of my football career was being able to pull on the big V, because it was so meaningful to me, and especially to be able to win against WA. And I'll never ever forget that moment, and a very, very special time in my life.
You certainly squeezed everything out of yourself,
yeah.
You did, mate. And that's all anyone can ever ask on your football career. So you played over 100 VFL games, that leadership and all that stuff that made you at the start of 06 probably makes you are today as well, like those little things like that you spoke of.
Yep.
Where do you go from there the next decade?
Yeah, I moved over to America at the end of 05 and lived over there for 2.5 years. And then, my wife at the time, her and I wanted to start a family, and we were keen on starting that in Australia rather than America. So we moved back over here, and wasn't too long after having my first daughter, Taylor, which was exciting, mate, and started building a house in Hastings, and went back and started playing local football. Had a run with my brother-in-law, Bevan Malloy, who was one of the greats of that VFL competition, 2-time best and fairest winner as well. And it was interesting. I played at Mornington for a year and really enjoyed my football, and then sort of sensed it was getting probably towards the end a little bit, and went to the Frankston Bombers, which was my local club growing up, that I ran water to my older brother when I was 11, 12 years old, and that sort of stuff. So, and it was funny. For me, the biggest thing I got out of football in terms of game days and all that was the preparation. I thrived on the preparation. It was that adrenaline, that build up to a game. And I remember in that last year I played at Frankston Bombers, I was in the rooms because I was a bit superstitious. So once I was in the rooms to start a team meeting and that, I wouldn't go back out. The team would go out at 3/4 time, bit of an on-ground warm-up. I was fortunate that I was given the chance to not have to go out. And it wasn't about me, it was just a superstition I had. So I'd warm up in the rooms on my own, and I'll never forget being in the rooms one day. My daughter was quite little, and And I stopped and I just went, it was that moment where I went, you know what am I doing here? I'd rather be at home playing with my daughter. And that was when I knew, for me, and I was still quite young, I think it might have been 28 years of age, I think I was. But once I'd sort of lost that passion, and it was that moment I sort of went, I've got to have a bit of a think about this. And that turned out to be my last year. And then went on to coach with Brett. Had a phone call from Brett, said I'm thinking about pulling the pin on football. He said, good, I want you to. Come and coach with me at Sandringham. So that was in the same competition as Frankston, arch enemy. Brett had taken the senior job. So I went along there, coached the reserves and coached the back line in the seniors. And learn a lot. Again, from playing under him to coaching alongside him are two very, very different experiences. And I was blessed to do that. So I had a great year there. During that year, I also had a phone call from Kevin Sheehan, who's the godfather of talent at the AFL. And he said, would I come up and manage what was called the World Team? They're playing in Division 3 of the Under-16 National Championships. Chris Johnson, the legendary Brisbane Lion, was coaching it. So we had a bit of a break in our season at VFL level. I spoke to Brett about missing a couple of training sessions with Sandringham. I think I might have missed one in the end, and I flew back and forward from Sydney a couple of times to get to training and uphold my commitment to the Zebras and the players there. And it was the end of that year I got offered a job at the AFL, so it sort of kick-started things from there, mate, and started working in talent at the AFL.
Yeah, I didn't actually know that started. That's a fantastic story. And the coaching side of it, you obviously will one day if you want to be a fantastic coach. That's a great grounding. But the stuff you've gone through, and this way you describe being a 29-year-old or 28-year-old and playing at the then local level is like, yeah, that's kind of where you're at now as well. Is that I'm not gonna. As soon as you don't want to be there wholeheartedly, it's just like,
yeah,
you got family, you got other passions, and it's where you're at now, which is, I know that was 14 years ago or whatever, but now it's kind of come full circle, which is cool. The AFL, once you got in there, you were there for a long period of time. I know you're very good friends with the now CEO Andrew Dillon and these kind of people. So the AFL, were you doing that as that your main job for a period of time?
Yeah, I was there for, I think it was just under 7 years. I was absolutely blessed. So I ran the National Academy. We had some incredible coaches along the way that were involved in it, but Mick O'Loughlin, Lukey Power, Brad Johnson, Glenn Jakovich, Peter Sumich, Brad Ottens, Ty Kennelly, Nick Del Santo, Boomer Harvey. So these were incredible people, Matty Lloyd. So I was very, very fortunate. Ended up, running, assisting Kev with the national championships, national combines. So to see some of the guys that you've known since 16 years of age go on to become all Australians and Brownlow medalists and these sorts of things. And for me, it wasn't even just about those guys. It was, I still bump into guys that didn't get to AFL level, and yet equally as proud of them to have played a part in their life. I had phone calls from kids on Saturday nights at midnight and stuff saying they'd been kicked out of home and went and, flew across the country and kept young men out of juvenile detention for mistakes they made. And through that period, for me, it was about helping young men not make the same mistakes I did. When I say that, I enjoyed a beer when I was younger, and I only found out, it's probably 6, 7, 8 years ago now. I had a recruiter sit me down when I was on a trip overseas with the National Academy, and he said to me, you know why you didn't make it, don't you? And I said, no. I said, go on, I think you're going to tell me though. And he goes, you enjoyed a beer, didn't you? And I said, yeah, I did. And he goes, that's what it was. At the time, it was sort of frowned upon for a young player to be drinking underage, and I was down at the local football club and enjoyed a beer too much. And it was just amazing that it was so long after my career and going through that sort of drafting type period in 1999, 2000 type thing to find out one of the things that was a reason behind me sort of not being held in the regard that I probably could have been for my on-field exploits was what I was doing off-field. So a lot of the stuff I teach kids now and speak to kids about, and I'm open and honest about it, is just learning from the mistakes I made. The beer's always going to be there. The nightclubs are always going to be there. You've got a really small window to actually get the most out of yourself and to make some sacrifices, and you don't want to have any regrets. And I guess I don't have a huge amount of regrets in life, but that was one of them. It certainly was that, I should have probably stayed at home, and I was very committed. I always trained hard, worked hard, did the rehab, but just enjoyed myself off field a little bit too much.
Great lessons, but also 1999, 2000, I feel like the draft era then was weirdly strict for one. Weirdly strict, I reckon. They went for an era of not drafting genuine footballers. Like Micky is a genuine footballer. He's a footballer's footballer, and he enjoys a beer. Who cares really? But that was that era where I thought they became really robotic for a period.
Yeah,
they looked at height even more so for a real long period.
Yep.
Athletes before footballers, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Looking at quote unquote nerds ahead of actual authentic people like Micky. I know Luke Hodge went in that era, but he probably bashed the door down.
Yeah.
But look, he's
a bit of ability too.
Similar personality to Hodgie, you, and it's very similar. But yeah, okay. Well, it's here. You knew it. You didn't know it at the time.
Yeah.
You knew it, and it's something you can curtail into your future lessons and coachings and teachings.
Yeah, definitely. And then I made the move to WA to redevelop their talent pathways and to restructure what was going on there, and which was great. We had an incredible year. They bought all the talent managers from the waffle clubs, the state league clubs, into head office, which was the West Australian Football Commission. We built a really strong team, had the most successful draft in WA history, which was really, really rewarding.
What year was that, mate?
It would have been 2019, I think it might have been. Yeah. And then COVID hit and got made redundant through that period, and which was a really hard pill to swallow. I split up with my wife a couple of years earlier, then met another fantastic girl and who was amazing for me and my journey, and then I ended up working up north in the mines of WA, because at the time that's where the work was. It was during COVID and not much happening around the city area, but plenty of work up in the mines, and did that for a year and a half, and it wasn't for me, mate. It took a big emotional toll, a mental toll on me. I loved the work. I met some great people, but just that being away from family, having two young girls and being away from my partner at the time was really rough.
Well, you've gone from footy your whole life, two beautiful girls. You're the mother of the girls. You were still sharing custody and all those things. Everything was, and then as soon as COVID hits, everything the arse falls out of that.
Yeah, it did. And mate, I admit this now. I went from having a nice house, and at the time, which I've realised now through a lot of work I've done with a psychologist and some help that I've got, football defined me, and at that time, football made me somebody. I felt important. So when that sort of came to an end, and the partner I had at the time, I really struggled with that. I made some poor decisions, some poor choices that let her down, let myself down, and at the time didn't understand why I'd made the decisions that I had and done the things that I did. And when I say that, it wasn't breaking the law. It was some silly personal choices that hurt her and some people around me, and cost me some of the best things in life, which was ultimately a relationship with her. So yeah, you live and you learn a lot, and now I've obviously gone on, got some help, been through a pretty rough time, and you learn through this. I was never against psychologists and and mental health challenges and that sort of stuff, but it was something pretty foreign to me. I was lucky through a really close friend of mine. He put me onto a guy. And look, I can't speak highly enough of the AFL Players Association. Even though I never played a game of AFL football, I've had incredible support through them, and that's how this sort of came about. And the treatment I've had has been covered by them, which is remarkable. And I hope someday I get a chance to repay that to them, because without going down this path and finding out and learning about myself, you sort of start to wonder where you might be in life and what would have happened. So it's been extremely rewarding, mate.
What a journey. And touching on that, but like you could talk for an hour about that stuff, but to go within is the most, it's the hardest, but it's also the most powerful and rewarding thing you could ever do, because it's only when you go within that you actually start to overcome all these obstacles that have been getting in your way. But you kind of got to sometimes hit rock bottom to get there, or get close, or repeatedly get close, whatever it may be. But you came back from the mines. You start the thinking, well, okay, this is what when did you think, okay, I need some genuine help?
Yeah, I got back. I remember coming to Melbourne, and I had a job lined up to go back to. I was flying out again, and I sat here in Melbourne, and Glenn Jakovich at the time, still is one of my best mates, he was involved with a labour hire company, and I saw a job come up locally. I just rang him and got really emotional and said, mate, you've got to get me this job. I can't go back to the mines. And fortunately he did, and I did that. And again, I was living in a unit on my own, which was a far cry from the houses I'd lived in and the life I was living. And I thought I could fix it myself, to be honest. And like I said, my partner at the time stood by me through thick and thin. Incredible support, incredible person. But unfortunately, it just got too much for her. And it wasn't until we split up, and you talk about, you mentioned about hitting rock bottom. And my mate, a good friend of mine, just happened to call out of the blue, and I broke down on the phone to him, and he said, where are you? I'm coming to see you. So I told him, we had a coffee, and he said, I've been going through the same thing for different reasons. Seeing this guy, I've reached out to the AFLPA. They've been great. Do you want me to see if we can go down the same path? I got diagnosed with a mental health disorder that was treatable. So I did. I went and saw this guy, and he basically said, we can help. We can get through. We can definitely, goes, I think we can get the results we need to get. It's about a 3-month process. If you're willing to go through the pain, he goes, and there's going to be some rough times, and be completely raw and honest, I'll get you the results that you want. And I remember sitting there, and I was just at the point where I just went, yeah, I don't have a choice. I've got to do this. And, for what I thought might have been 3 or 4 months, has now been 10. And I sit there, and I'm a huge advocate for this now, mate. For what I've learned and what I've been able to learn about myself and the way I was living, the choices I was making, to who I am now. And if I had one thing I could do, it would be to turn back the clock and learn from it and right some wrongs. Clearly we can't do that. So, but one thing I know is I'll never go back to living the way I was. I now understand myself. I understand why I did the things I did. Not that it makes it easier on anybody else that I hurt in the process, but I know I'll never go down that path again. I'll never be that person, and I know the triggers and all those sorts of things now that that led me to the places I went to. But as much as that's a great feeling, and it's taken me 43 years to get to that point, mate. You do still wish you could have some time back. Yeah, but
I really appreciate the share.
It's
never easy, and we all you've done amazing things in life, and you've helped thousands of people, but we've all got things that we would love to take back. But the clarity that you've got around it now, and the reasons and the way your brain and mind was working for 40 years, that stuff is it's nice to have some clarity and definition, and also the ability to talk it out, which we of our generation playing football, we certainly never ever wanted to do.
No.
Which is what we're here for doing right now. I know the world's changed a lot, which is awesome, and it's amazing. Obviously, we talk a lot on this show about this stuff, but the fact that you're doing this and you have obviously a very big media and football profile especially, doing this is going to help tens of thousands of people without you even knowing it. Yeah. And that's why you do it, I know.
Yeah, 100%. Through my work now too, I've been lucky through an organisation, Mates in Construction. I've done some suicide prevention training, mental health first aid training. So I've sort of taken that responsibility on from our company's point of view, and it's something I'm really passionate about. And, I laugh and joke with people, mate, and say I've still got a long way to go in my journey, and here's me giving life advice to people and the like. But
progress over perfection, though. We've all got a long way to go.
But it's just incredibly important. It's something I'm passionate about. Through going on my own personal journey, to being able to work with people and help people now, and to be able to try and get them to see the positives in life, I think is we've all got challenges. I know, you and I, mate, it's been a long time. We've known each other a long time, but you also go a fair period of time between contact and stuff, but it's that mateship and that support and that care that certainly gets you through some of the rougher times when you realise how fortunate you are to have good people around you, and that's what I guess this is all about. And I've gone down that path, so it's an opportunity, I guess, for me to repay some of that faith that other people have shown in me.
Yeah, no, you speak brilliantly. And look, we talked off the cuff at the start about trying to get your, I guess, priorities in order, which we all struggle with and are forever struggling with. But I feel like at 41 that I feel like I'm getting there. Also with a lot of help myself as well, and then working through this stuff and trying to prioritise the right things, and then the clarity. And I feel like you're in a great spot. But I think the help that the way you're serving others as well, it's gonna pay it forward 1 billion times over. But you're right. You've never once thought about yourself. You always think about other people, in what I reckon. But you have probably always been a bit hard on yourself as well. So hopefully now you're not as hard on yourself.
No, I think there was when I made the mistakes I did make, which again, like I say, cost me one of the best things that it ever happened to me in terms of my relationship with my partner. That was a period where I was very selfish. Some of the things I did were around your own needs and that, but yeah, to look back now and to understand a lot more about myself and what got me to that point, it was really important. It's a huge weight off your shoulders, and that's why I encourage anyone like that is struggling to go and chat to someone and go and get some help, because we know as athletes, mate, or me as a former athlete, you're still in crack with Mick, but me as a former athlete, when you got a sore calf or a sore shoulder, you go and get it treated, don't you? When it comes to the mental health stuff, I thought I could fix it myself. I thought I had it under control, and I didn't. And it wasn't. And I'm the first to say, if I hadn't gone and got professional help, mate, I'd still be the same person. I'd still be in the same situation I was.
Exactly the same here, but it's not about me. I can't advocate that enough. What Mick said, he's not a man that talks any form of shit. Everything he says has a purpose. Everything he says is authentic and genuine. So when he gets that raw and genuine about things, that even the most, I guess, staunch person that would say, I'm not going to get help or speak to anyone, I hope that you can hear that, and hopefully it kind of changes your mind a little bit, because the weight off the shoulders is a great way to describe it, even if it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you come back to football, a lot of the stuff that you learn through football helps. I certainly, again, it's the life stuff's more important, but some of the lessons you learn out of football and the environments and the people that you've come across, their guidance and their words ring true. And I'm just very, very fortunate, mate, to have gone through the life experiences that I have, some good, some bad, and all you can do is try and take each day as it comes, and
every day's a new day,
and be a better person.
Of course, every day's a new day, and we got the motto, what a day to be alive and all that stuff, but every day is a new day, so it's about forgetting mistakes that we've made and wasted emotions, guilt, anxiety, rubbish. It's just rubbish. Look, just switch on. It's a great day to be alive. Use the resources, and just try to really, and then parlay and play it forward like you have so brilliantly. And you're right, we spoke 25 minutes ago about what the way you are as a person transfers on the footy field as well. So then, or the sporting field and the coaching arena and the business world, like your leadership stuff there. So it's only going to help you what you're learning now over the next 50 years as well. So before we finish up, I want to hear about a bit of the future, but a bit of like, what's your motto? Okay, all this stuff's off the cuff as well. What do you try to live by day to day for your girls, and if you're talking to your girls about life? It's off the cuff as always. Guys.
Yeah.
What's them?
Yeah, there's a book I read and I recommend it to anyone, and again, Lovey gave it to me a long time ago, and I've read it multiple times. It's John Wooden, A Lifetime of Reflections on and Off the Court. And
great
John,
coach.
Yeah, obviously the most winningest coach in national basketball at a college level in America. It was something my mum always said. It was something that took me a long time to learn, Rick, up until really recently. But there's a John Wooden quote that says, "Tell the truth. That way you don't have to remember a story." And sorry, mate.
Take your time.
Lying was a really big downfall of mine personally, and good, thanks, mate. And that's something that has cost me over time, and so that quote and that sort of motto to live by is something I now live by myself truly, and I can say that, and something that I push on to my girls is just, regardless of how good or bad, just be honest, tell the truth, and the pain that you save yourself and other people down the track is huge.
No, beautifully said, mate, and really good example for your young daughters, of course, but also the thousands of people you come in contact with a week of work and football. Fantastic, mate. All right, you spoke so brilliantly about that stuff. I want to know a couple of things quickly, but I want to know what the future holds for Micky Ablett, number one. But just quick, this is just, I actually haven't even planned these questions either, Legends. Some of the best we know about how good Lovey is, best footballer you've ever played with?
It's funny, Ian, you mentioned him earlier. The most gifted player I ever played with was Travis Johnston.
I knew where that was going. Local boy Trav. G'day,
he was just incredible. His nickname was Roller, the Rolls Royce, and from a pure talent perspective, he just did things that were amazing that nobody else could do. And from a coaching perspective, I went to Glenn Jakovic's 50th birthday one night, and John Worsfold was there, ex-West Coast Eagles coach, legendary premiership captain. First time I've met Woosher, and he said to me, "Who's the most talented player you ever worked with?" And I said, take character and everything out of it. Pure raw talent was Isaac Rankin. And he was quite surprised. And he said to me, really? And that birthday would have been, Jacko's birthday was probably 18 months ago. Sorry, Jacko, for putting him as to your age. But,
well, you've been proven prophetic.
Oh, mate, he reminded me of Andrew McLeod as a kid. Oh, and he's just, that kid can do things.
I wonder if Woosher remembers that convo, because I reckon you've been proven right, because he has got ability.
Oh, mate, he's a remarkable talent.
Like none that we've seen. Jakovic, for those outside of Australia, 4-time B&F at West Coast, 2-time premiership player, and probably got claims to be in the top 3 of all time at West Coast Eagles, which is in Western Australia, where Mick is now working and living. What about what about as a recruiter or in that role, in that 8, 7, 8, still yet now? The one player that you backed in from a character and that probably others didn't, and again, off the cuff questions. But now you've been proven right again.
Yeah, look, I had some really good people around me that taught me a lot about talent ID. The one that I went into bat for, that's probably my claim to fame, is Liam Duggan. Duggo is a 16-year-old. He's now co-captain of the West Coast Eagles, and I remember sitting in the boardroom at AFL House because I was part of the selection panel for the National Academy. And we got to the end of the meeting and I was early into the role, and you had a lot of guys, we had representation from AFL clubs, national recruiting managers, list managers and the like on those panels. We're sitting around the table and they said, is there anyone else to consider? And I said, Liam Duggan. And I think he might have averaged 6 or 8 touches. I think it was at the Under-16 National Championships. I said, I want to bring up Liam Duggan, and a couple of people sort of laughed and sniggered across the table. And Derek Hine at the time was the national recruiting manager.
Collingwood?
Might have even been the list manager at the time at Collingwood, yet still in the game and got a remarkable record of picking talent. And the others sort of laughed a little bit, and Decker looked across and he goes, I'm with you, Mick. And as a young person, I was still trying to earn the respect of people like Decker in the industry, and the others sort of sat up and took notice a little bit, and there was just a couple of things he did. And then as I got to know Liam, he was just a ripping person. So my number one thing when I do talent ID and you talk about list management, recruiting, is character, is number one. And I say this all the time, you don't have to be an angel, but you've got to be a good person. And Liam was just a ripping human, and got to the West Coast Eagles. I said, a good friend of mine there, I said, he'll captain your club one day.
Love this. This is what I love.
And that's what he's gone on to do. And so he's just an outstanding leader, very humble person too.
Okay, that's brilliant. Let's just start on the ID stuff for a bit, because I reckon some parents, not all, need to hear this. We've both worked with many AFL draftees, and some get drafted very high, and some who've been on this show get drafted at 23. Some parents need to hear this. Number one trait, you said character, 100%, 10 out of 10. What are the next 2 to 3 to 4 at 17, 18?
Yeah, so for mine, and I stick true to this, so it's the character part, number one.
By some margin.
Secondly is talent. So what have you actually got? You've got to have something going for you.
One would suit power.
And I can't stand in the industry, and I say this all the time, players are constantly told what they can't do.
Got to tell them.
I hate hearing that. I want to hear what they're good at. They're playing at a high level for a reason. So whatever you're good at, become great at it.
That's why I love him. We love each other.
We do, mate. And we always will.
Magnificent stuff.
But you think like a Roger Federer backhand. Like that was his one wood. And the third thing is competitiveness. I say all the time, you don't have to be Jack Viney or Joel Selwood and be a lunatic, and two great footballers and good friends of mine, but
you need to compete.
You've got to be able to compete. You've got to be able to. There's an analogy I use when I get talking to people about a player, and I say, when you question that, you go, I just don't quite trust him. And that's in that competitive type. The game is tough.
Yeah.
The game, in terms of the way the game's played now, is the demands on the players now are at an all-time high. And I actually feel for some of the young players now, because it is remarkable, and it's no mean feat to be able to get to that level now.
I don't think we're biased. Maybe we are. I don't think we are. It's the hardest game in the world for many reasons. I've said it a million times. You've got to be an elite 5,000 runner, elite 100-metre sprinter, elite marathoner, UFC fighter. You've got to be like a chess player out there, and then have the courage and competitiveness all in one.
Absolutely. And probably for the parents out there, Ricky, like for parents that are listening in any sport, but I speak from an AFL perspective, it's fundamentals. Luke Power, who the ex-champion of the Brisbane Lions, played over 300 games of footy. He's one of the best, if not the best, from a development coaching perspective I ever worked with. Outstanding person. He taught fundamentals. It wasn't about structure and setup and we all watch the Fox Lab and David King, a really good friend of mine. Love you, Kingy.
Doesn't Kingy love some games?
And I love the lab, but the fundamentals.
Take a break every now and then. Just take a break.
They're crucial, and that's what I constantly push. I think the greatest challenge we face in the game is coaching at the moment. But if it's your son or daughter, or you are coaching kids, focus on the fundamentals and become elite at being able to be clean at ground level, be able to execute by hand both sides of the body, and be able to hit targets.
There it is. That's all you need to hear, and just let them develop at their own rates. But the fundamentals and character. You remember what Mickey said off the bat. Number one, always make it upstanding characters and outstanding human beings, both males and females, coming into any level of elite sport. He's been brilliant, hasn't he? I told him, mate, you want to see this bloke on Foxtel. He's elite, Channel 10. He's everywhere. He's got a face for camera, I know. This is why I'm more on radio type setup. But Micky Ablett is just one of the great looking individuals of all time, but one of the great outstanding human beings as well. Always easy to be around as well. Tell me the future for Mick Ablett.
Yeah, I hope one day to return to football, Rick, to be honest. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen, but I'd love an opportunity. I still feel like I've got a lot to give back to the industry. I'd like to work at a club someday, to be honest. I work for 2 big organisations. I'd love to get to Clubland. In terms of where I am, mate, I'm not really sure. My girls are getting older.
Melbourne somewhere. Bring the girls over.
I love Melbourne, mate. Look, I love WA too. It was interesting. It was only recently that I sort of got to that point where WA feels like home as well. So, look, I don't really know, to be honest, mate. I'm fortunate to work where I did. I do. Sorry, like I said earlier, got some great people to work with. Very supportive manager in Dylan Ogilvie, and still keeping a toe in the water. Still trying to stay somewhat relevant, mate, in the area. I've had a lot of support from the guys at Fox Footy. I love doing the work there. So hopefully,
look out for the draft time. You make sure
more media work.
There would be a lot more media work. We love Mickey. We'll do a couple of Insta lives with Mickey coming up to the draft. We'll get him all around it. We love chatting to experts in the field, but he's got so much that I didn't want to just touch on too much of the draft stuff, because that's like a small percentage of what he does. He does so much, and he's been through so much, and his most important stuff that he's teaching now is what we spoke about the last 30 minutes, which is really important stuff. One of the great football careers, one of the great football people, and it's not hyperbole to say one of the great humans, and will coach football. There's no doubt about that at I reckon the highest level. Let's just give it a couple of years. Just let him. Well, it's just great for me to see you so happy and clear-headed. That's number one, moving forward. And it's just day by day. There's no progress over perfection, mate. If we stop seeking perfection all the fucking time, everything's good.
Yeah, I think, mate, it's a throwaway line. We hear a lot about being a better person and trying to be better each day. But when you can actually look yourself in the mirror and be honest with that, I used to say that and convince myself that that's who I was trying to be. But when you can actually learn about yourself, and sometimes you've got to hit rock bottom to do that, when you can actually look yourself in the mirror and commit to being a better person each day, life's a lot easier to live.
You can't get any more final words, but any final words, great man?
No, just look, enjoy life, live in the moment.
Hey, it's a magnificent day to be alive right now, because I've just spoken to Mick Ablett. You've just heard the great man. And if you're going to listen over and over, make some footnotes. We'll put them in the notes. But if you need to reach out to Mickey, get so on the socials and sure. Like, and we'll share all that stuff. But I thank you so much, mate.
No, thanks, brother. Always good seeing you.
He's a star. He's a star, and still in ripping Nick, by the way, apart from a couple of dodgy killers, the 4-time B&F winner. Thanks, Mickey.